Hi, this is Denise Matthew and welcome to episode 28 of the Mandala of Life, 365 Days to Self-Discovery. Today we're continuing on with collective energy. We're moving away from the Gate 15 and the Identity Center that talks about the flow, being magnetic, and the extremes of life, extremes that are made to bring things into balance. Today we're moving into the Root Center where the theme is stress, pressure, and adrenaline energy. This is a place where the formats begin. And because of that, there's a tremendous amount of power within this energy. Here with the Gate 52, it's the power to be still. And though many will fight against the stillness and the quiet nature of life, it is only in the moments of quiet and stillness that the true answers to our destiny and the patterns of life can be found. Today we're moving away from the logical collective energy that goes from the identity center to the sacral, and instead looking at the root to the sacral energy. So away from the identity of who we feel we are to the pressure that exists within the root center. As Ra Uru Hu said, the root is about the collective and the individual. It is about the future, the past, and the mutation. But before we get into new content, let's go over what we talked about in our last episode. In our last episode, we talked about the Gate 15 and how it's half of the channel of the 515, which is logical collective energy. The 515 is about our rhythm and our flow as humanity, and can bring with it a tremendous amount of magnetism, where the aura is large and people move to the flow of the person who carries the full channel. The Gate 15 is about extremes, the extremes that we need to make in our lives or the lives of others to bring things back into balance. And it can also talk to the aura of humanity and the aura of the individual, where when we as individuals increase the vibration of our aura, that spreads to all those around us, and it brings with it the potential for the collective aura to increase and the vibration of humanity to go up an octave. The patterns within this energy are patterns that shift daily, but even within the extremes of pattern, there's balance. And if you want to find out more about the Gate 15, please check out episode 27 of the Mandala of Life. With that said, let's get into new content. And don't forget to check out the other episodes of the Mandala of Life. Just from the name alone, it's very easy to discover exactly what the Gate 52 embodies. It's called Keeping Still Mountain, which talks to the stillness that we sometimes need to go into in order to find the answers to the questions of the patterns of our lives. This is the 10th gate of the quarter of civilization and is also part of format energy that connect the root center to the sacral center. It's a place where the frequency for the particular circuit begin. So the 952 begins the energy of the logical collective circuit. The 360 begins the energy for the individual circuit. And the 4253 begins the energy of the collective abstract circuit. There's no tribal energy within the formats. So that talks to the idea that it is not about the mundane. It is about other things that we think about in our lives. If we look at the 515 that we looked at last week, we can see that it is connecting the identity center to the sacral center. The 952 goes across the sacral center so that it can connect to the 515, and then the 515 goes directly to the 731. This brings an energy of the logical collective right to the throat, and this is where we can have the idea of focusing on the important patterns of life, getting into the flow of our lives, and then having some influential energy to talk about the patterns and how they can be used to lead the collective. So if you look at the whole concept of how it all works together, there is a flow. And that's kind of what we want to remember with any of these energies, especially with the formats, because they are beginning at one part and they are finishing at the throat center, which is really the place where all energy wants to go for manifestation to occur. The root center is one of two pressure centers. The other is the head center. The root center is the pressure that is adrenalized, or there's a tremendous amount of stress that can come with this energy. Because like I said, they begin the sequence of 3 different circuits. So it is the beginning sequence or the pressure to move the energy so that it can get to the throat at some point. But it has to go through a lot of different places before it finally gets there. Before we get into just the hanging Gate 52, let's have a brief look at what the 952 channel looks like. The first thing we will always know about anybody who carries the 952 channel, the whole channel, will be that they are a generator type, either a manifesting generator or a pure generator type. The 9 energy is all about this idea that you might hyper focus or be really concerned about trying to get the details. But when you have the details, if you don't have the gate 52, then a lot of times you'll just have the details, but you're not really sure about where you're going to go with them. You're not really sure about what you're going to do with them. The 52 energy is about sitting in stillness, looking at what you've collected, you could say, deciding where you want to put all the different things that you've collected so that you can have some level of a pattern. And that ultimately is what you're looking for. So we know that the 952 energy is going to be more balanced when it's a full channel, as most channels are. Because as soon as they're coming together, they're activating a quantum, which is activating the energy, and it's making it flow in a particular way. But when we only have the gate 52, that is the stillness. So let's talk about what a hanging gate 52 looks like. So even if we're talking about a hanging gate 52, remember that there is always going to be the electromagnetic, or this attraction that you have to getting the other half of that particular hanging gate. In this case, it would be the gate 9, which is the gate of details and of focus. The gate 52 is the gate of, or the energy of concentration. So you have the focus and you have the concentration, and they're two different concepts. And a lot of times it sounds like the same thing. But if we can imagine that you read a book, and a lot of people have done that, they can read a whole chapter, maybe just one page or something like that. And you go back and you say that I don't know anything about what I've read. I mean, I just went through it and I can't remember any of it because one of the ingredients was missing. You had the focus, but you didn't have the concentration. So in other words, you're looking at the words, you're reading the words, but they're not going anywhere because you're not actually in the words or in the story or whatever that is. So that is part of the way this energy works. You have the 9, which is the focus, to be looking at something, but the concentration is to be looking at something and deciphering what exactly it's actually meaning to you. It can happen when you're in a conversation with someone. They're talking and you're looking at them, and as far as they know, you're listening to everything they're saying, but yet you're thinking about something else. So your concentration isn't with that person. You're focused on them, but there's no concentration on what they're saying. So that's how these energies work together. Now, when they're on their own, you can imagine how that looks. And so that is why electromagnetics are important. They're important with any kind of hanging gate, because as soon as you have the two halves of the channel, with this, it's the 952, you have the harmonic, or you have a quantum that is activated. And when that's activated, it balances the energy and creates an energetic that is specific to that particular channel, and it flows better. We are always being influenced by the electromagnetics through planetary transits and also through relationships, and even just being out in the world. We're always connecting with the electromagnetic of our hanging gates because that's a natural attraction that we have to the energy that will fill that space, or to connect that energy so that we will have the flow going through, because it will always be connecting two different centers. So the gate 52 is about logical collective energy. Logical collective energy is about collective energy, which is always about sharing. And logical means that it's all about patterns. We are looking at the patterns. Now, the reason why we look at patterns is because we want to be able to predict the future. We are predicting what we expect to happen based on how the patterns look. So when we're sitting in stillness, that is what we're doing with this energy. The gate 52 is about being able to sit with yourself, to actually be able to sit down, to unhook from the world around you, to connect with just the energy of what do I need to know? What are the patterns that are important? Where do I need to place my focus? Because that's what you're doing. You're actually honing in on what's important for you. For instance, if you're looking at trying to change your life, or there's particular goals that you have for your life, you are looking at the patterns that you've been doing in your life. What patterns are you consistently doing over and again? What results are you getting from what you're doing consistently over and again? If it's positive results on certain patterns, then those would be patterns you want to put more focus on. If it's not something that you're wanting to get, if it's something that is exactly what you don't want, then this is where you would look at, how can I change that pattern or release that pattern or no longer do it because it is not serving you. And if it's not serving you, and it's not serving you to get to your ultimate goal in the future, because again, we're predicting the future, we're deciding that this works, this doesn't work. Where do I put my focus? Where do I put my energy going into the future? This is an important part of being human, because if we don't take the time to concentrate and to sort through the details of our lives, we never really know where we're going, because it's like you're shooting in the dark. You don't exactly know your destination because you haven't actually taken the time to sit in stillness. It is one of the most difficult energies to actually have in the world, because that is not the way the world is set up, especially not the Western world, where it's all about doing more, being on top of things, always going fast and never really slowing down and trying to sit with the information that you have and try and figure out where you want to go with it in the future. So sitting in stillness while everybody is buzzing around and doing work can sometimes be one of those things that it takes a tremendous amount of effort to do, but it is in the stillness that the answers and the true solutions to your future and your plans and the goals you want to bring into manifestation can be found. When you carry the energy of the Gate 52, you can be somebody who likes to sit in stillness or even to meditate. There can be an ability to sit in stillness for a long time. For instance, somebody who did wildlife photography, where you have to sit for long periods of time just waiting for the perfect opportunity, and you can actually take that picture that you've been waiting for hours. Not everybody has the ability to sit in stillness and wait for those opportunities, but with this energy, there's potential for you to be able to do that, to actually have the concentration to just sit there. But as much as there's an ability to sit in stillness or quiet with this energy, there's also this other part of it, which is about the tension. And this comes from the root center. The root center is always giving some level of pressure that many might call stress, because this is where adrenaline energy comes into play. So this is where we could say that collective stress comes from. Richard Rudd has a nice way of explaining it, where he says that based on the energy of the 52 or the Gate 52, or what he would call the Gene Key 52, it's this concept that the stress that we feel is a collective stress. It is based on the auras of everybody. And the closer we are in proximity, so for instance, in cities and so forth, the stress level increases because the auras are kind of jam-packed all together. And when you're out in rural areas, you have less people, so less auras compacted together. It does talk to the idea of the flow as well. But if we just focus on the auras, we know that if somebody is having a tremendous amount of stress and they come into a room, and you can feel that energy, and it does affect you in your space and how you're feeling. And a lot of times adrenaline energy, we know from a physiological perspective, is that we have a fight or flight energy about us as a human race. And that's usually happens when we have fear. So we either run away or we freeze in place. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about adrenaline energy. And how that plays into the whole concept of the Gate 52 and the stillness is that there are two ways that this energy can show up. One is that the Gate 52 can not be in stillness. You don't want to sit around. You don't want to be still at any point. You want to continue to move and do what you need to do and not really stop and kind of smell the roses, you could say, or to contemplate what your life is looking like and where you want to go in the future, and to look at all the things you're always collecting as you go along in life, because we're always collecting things and details and information, but we a lot of times will not sit with that and figure out what it all means to us and what's important and what's not. And that's where we go to this concentration on concentrating on what to focus on. The other perspective is that there is a lot of stillness in this energy, and there can be this inertia where you're not moving at all. You're stuck in place. You don't feel like there's anywhere to go. So it all goes back to this concept of how we deal with fear. And especially if we're living in an area that is quite congested or compacted, This aura of collective fear can penetrate us even in the confines of our own space of where we live. And we could have this feeling of extreme fear that just comes out of nowhere and you don't know why you're feeling the way you're feeling. This could be the impact of the collective energy that's all around you. And as I said, in a more congested, compacted area where there's more people living, you can feel it even more. Knowing that this energy is part of the collective aura, the collective field, and understanding that you can unhook from that energy at some points in this stillness, to actually go into your stillness and to not connect with the energy that is not your energy. You could say it's like a planing, a place between the extremes, somewhere where you are not feeling up and you're not feeling down. You find a space in the middle, and that's where you can find this stillness, this place where you are able to connect with the inner you or the inner patterns of your life. And sometimes it just means that there is a stillness in a meditative state where there's nothing that's flowing other than this ability to disconnect with everything. So with anything that we encounter and any of the energies in the gates of the body graph, we're always trying to find the place in the middle, the balance within the energy. And so within the stillness of the gate 52, we want to find the balance between being still, but also living in the world as well. Because some people with this energy of the gate 52 can want to be in a meditative state at all points and not really live within the world and to completely unhook from the world in general, which can work for some people, but for the most part, it isn't really a sustainable way to live in the world. So ultimately, balance in all things. And it's important to talk about the one thing that both Ra Uru Hu and Richard Rudd did talk about within this energy is the concept of not being able to find the thing that you want to focus on, to have the concentration, but not necessarily to find the focus on that thing that you feel is important for the trajectory of your life or for the patterns of your life. And to have the stillness, but not have something to focus on can cause this feeling that there's nothing to actually sit with when you are sitting in stillness. And what Ra Uru Hu said for the best healing energy was to have the energy of the harmonic or the gate that completed the channel. And when that happened, it would bring the energy into a better flow. So this talks to the idea of more balance within the energy. And with the balance within the energy, you have the focus and the concentration. So the gate 9 connecting with the gate 52 to give the energy more of a flow. And Richard Rudd talked about when there was this apathy connected to this inertia, that being of service to others could be helpful to work through this energy. The reason why I mentioned this was because I wanted to show you the connection. Because sometimes in the stillness, there can be this feeling of stuck and not really knowing when something's going to show up or something's going to be worthwhile for you to focus. But the truth is, eventually things will come into focus and you will be able to see what you need to see. If that means going out to a coffee shop so that you can connect with the energy of the harmonic just to see if that helps you, then it's something to try. When we work every day and we focus on a million things and we're running from A to B to C, this is a moment where we sit in our stillness and we start to allow what we know or what we've seen to take on a different perspective so that we can see the truth in where we've been going that we never would have seen had we continued to move, be busy within our lives. So the stillness is part of getting to know ourselves better, to be able to focus on the things that are most important to us, the things that are important to our lives, to our trajectory, to where we want to go in our future. The stillness is the place where we can find peace and tranquility if we allow it to happen. There will always be pressure from the outside world to continue to do, to not stop, to not take a break for ourselves. But this is built within us. The body graph tells us that this is where the energy for an ability to just kind of unhook from the world is found. And it's important. It's just as important as work. And all things in moderation can bring balance into our lives. And when we have learned about stillness, the mandala of life turns again. And we move into our individual energy, the energy that talks to empowerment. This empowerment is of the self, and when we feel empowered, the world feels empowered with us. This is about provocation. with a much deeper meaning. This is energy that pushes us into the realization that we are not alone. The universe is all around us, and if we allow it to, the universe always has our back. Well, that's all for now, and please join me for our next episode, episode 29, the Gate 39, the Gate of Provocation, and also emoting. Until then, take care, and I'll see you again soon.